Okay, it is 4 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with the roll call. Vicky, please.
Mayor Sue Patterson,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Warren Dickert,
Present.
Councillor Harold Fleet,
Present.
Councillor Dave Hawking,
Present.
Councillor Carol Hudson,
Present.
Councillor Brandon Cable,
Present.
Councillor Susan Zackel.
Present.
Thank you. All members are present and accounted for. We'll start with the land acknowledgement. As we work toward reconciliation with Indigenous people, we begin our meeting today by respectfully acknowledging that we are situated on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe Nation, the people of Three Fires known as Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations, and further give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, now known as the Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of this land. So welcome to our Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, September 5th. Good afternoon, Council, staff, the viewing public, and the media. Council, does anyone have a disclosure of pecuniary interest or a conflict of interest? Deputy Mayor Dickert.
I declare an interest in item 8.3, which is the Hanover Police Services Station Review Committee, as I have a family member employed by Hanover Police Services.
Thank you. And of course, Council, if a conflict does arise during the meeting, you may declare it then too. So item 4 on our agenda is additions or deletions, and we do not have any. Our health and safety message is brought to us by Councillor Fleet.
Thank you, Your Worship. The health and safety message is cyberbullying. Cyberbullying can happen to anyone at any age. Cyberbullying is a form of bullying that uses electronic media to threaten, embarrass, intimidate, or exclude someone or damage their reputation. Tips to help prevent cyberbullying. Adjust online privacy settings to limit the amount and type of information you share publicly. Protect your passwords and don't use the same password for more than one login. Don't share personal information in an email, chat room, or other online form. Don't respond to retaliate often. The bully's goal is to provoke and response and pull you deeper into the negative situation. Block cyberbullies. Change your settings to block a bully from being able to interact with you. Report cyberbullying to site administration aiders. Keep clear records such as screenshots, audio, and video evidence. This makes it easier to explain your situation and pursue consequences. Remember, you're not alone. Reach out to trusted friends, family, school, counselor, co-workers for help and input. Contact law enforcement if you feel you are in danger. Threats of violence or sustained harassment should never be ignored.
Thank you. Good information for all of us. It's very easy to get taken in by certain things and click on things that you shouldn't be clicking on. So if in doubt, don't click. Okay, item 6 is our delegations. We have one this afternoon. We have Jacob Hanlon from the municipal, and he is the municipal program coordinator for Food Cycle Science. So welcome, Jacob.
Thank you very much, Mayor and councillors and members of staff. I usually put my video on just so that we can be face to face, but I think I need permission to have that on from the host.
Okay, we'll work on that.
But I can share my screen regardless and get started with the presentation here.
Okay, and we can see your screen, so please go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So I'll just start by saying thank you very much for having me on here today, Mayor and councillors and members of staff. I'm Jacob Hanlon, and I'm the Municipal Program Coordinator at Food Cycle Science, and I'm excited to be here virtually to discuss a food waste diversion opportunity for Hanover. I chatted with a few of you at the AMO conference in London a couple weeks ago, and it's nice to be back in front of you here continuing the conversation today. So to briefly give you an idea of who we are at Food Cycle Science, I know I spoke to a few councillors at the conference as well as at the joint landfill meeting with Brockton there a few months back. But for anyone who doesn't know who we are, we're a Canadian company. We're based out of Ottawa, and we are 100% focused on food waste diversion solutions. So we do this using our innovative technology called the Food Cycler. The Food Cycler is an in-home food processor and recycler, food waste processor and recycler. And while it is sold direct to consumers through our North American partnerships with companies like Vitamix, we also put them into schools and in school boards through our partnerships with not-for-profits such as Eco Schools Canada. And then the reason I'm here is we also put our machines into the households of residents in a lot of municipalities across North America as a municipal program. So our municipal solutions help many small, rural, remote, and northern communities keep food waste out of their landfill. We're currently working with over 100 Canadian municipalities across 8 provinces and 1 territory, from Nelson out in British Columbia up to Hay River in the Northwest Territories, and then many communities across Canada and in Ontario who often face struggles with food waste management, with animals getting into the garbage, or where curbside green bin collection either isn't the best option for them or it's not the only option for them. So to speak briefly about the problem with food waste is that it is avoidable. It accounts for a large portion of our household waste, and it's made up of mostly liquid, which is heavy and freezes in the wintertime. On top of that, when we put food waste in the landfill, it's responsible for generating some pretty harmful greenhouse gases. And these factors make it so that food waste is a problem that has a strong municipal impact. So one of the impacts to municipalities is, since food waste makes up such a large portion of our waste stream, it is causing landfills to fill up quickly. Operating a landfill is obviously costly, so we want to extend the lifespan for as long as we can. But then the environmental impact is, when you do put organic waste into the landfill, it's in an anaerobic environment and it's being squished between tons and tons of waste. So it doesn't have access to the oxygen it needs to properly break down. So in that environment, it produces methane gas, which is quite a bit more harmful than CO2. And then in our communities, when we do put food waste in the garbage, it causes odors, which is unpleasant for humans, but sometimes interesting for animals like bears and raccoons who like to go through our garbage. So removing food waste from the garbage eliminates all these issues, and it reduces the overall volume of, 1, your food waste, but 2, what actually ends up going in the landfill. So this can save on hauling and disposal fees, can definitely save space in the landfill, and it can save residents on hassle and any extra waste fees that they might face on their end. So we often get asked, haven't we solved this problem already? And yes, there are green bins, which are common in big cities and places with higher population density and the right infrastructure. But this can be cost prohibitive and operationally challenging to implement. And even when there is a green bin program present, participation rates are typically difficult to get to the level that we want. I know here in Ottawa, we've had the green bin program for over a decade here, and we still don't even have a 60% participation rate. So in a case like Ottawa, having multiple methods of food waste diversion is something that would be very valuable. Many people in your community might backyard compost, and while this is a great solution, it's unfortunately not feasible for everybody. It's certainly not a year-round solution either, and there's still the concern about animals getting into that backyard bin. And then lastly, we can also landfill our organic waste. But as I mentioned, the effects of this on the environment, on an economic side, they're quite negative. So at Food Cycler, what we've done is we've proposed a different way to deal with our food waste. And this really focuses on making it very simple and easy to deal with and right in our homes. So we've built a small kitchen appliance about the size of a bread machine, and you can put in your food waste, which includes things like meat, poultry, fish, dairy, even some bones. And then in 8 hours or less, so typically an overnight cycle, you end up with a fertilizer alternative. So it's dry, it's odorless, and it's full of nutrients, and it can go right into your garden. The machine can be used anywhere that has a plug. Most people will store it in their kitchen, in their basement, or even in a heated garage. And with that removable bucket, it allows you to have a collection bucket either under your sink or on your counter, and then the actual machine doesn't have to take up countertop space. On average, the Food Cycler processes between 1 and 3 kilograms of food waste per cycle. Each cycle takes between 0.8 and 1.5 kilowatt hours of power. So similar to having a computer plugged in for the same amount of time. And the result is that reduced volume of essentially a fertilizer alternative that can go right into your garden. This is just an overview here of what our two machines are that we put into our municipal programs. So the main difference is the one on the left there is 2.5 liters in capacity, and the one on the right is a 5-liter capacity. Both machines are very similar in size, about a cubic foot, similar to a bread machine, but basically the biggest difference is that size of the bucket, and we ultimately leave it up to residents in the municipal programs when they register to choose which model best suits their household. Typically, the larger families go with the larger model, but both do the same job. And I'll just emphasize here with this visual, there's about a 90% reduction in the weight and the volume of your food waste as it goes through that 8-hour cycle. So even if this were to end up in a curbside bin, or if it was being stockpiled, let's say through the winter to go into spring planting, it is quite reduced in its volume while still retaining that beneficial nutrient level that's really helpful for plant growth and for your soil. And then just to speak on some of the uses for the byproduct. So it is a completely dry and inert biomass. It can be stored indefinitely, especially through the winter time. And as long as it's stored in a dry place, it retains its nutrients and it can go right into your garden when you're ready for it. But for people who don't necessarily have a garden, it can go into a backyard compost bin or a tumbler or a green cone. It can be integrated into leaf and yard waste systems. But another aspect of the program that we provide is we work with municipalities to connect residents with either local compost sites, local farms, or community gardens so that they can donate their byproduct and keep that within kind of that closed loop in the community. And then lastly, it can also be added to a green bin program as well. For places like apartment buildings, it allows that to not have the smell and the ick factor that raw food waste would have, and it also allows for less frequent collection as well in a green bin program. So I mentioned that we're working with many municipalities across Canada. So to date, we've completed programs in over 50 municipalities and over 6,000 households. And each one of those households has been sent a survey at the end of their pilot program. And the results we've gotten have been overwhelmingly positive. We've been able to achieve a significant amount of net new waste diversion. We have a generous user experience rating of 4.6 out of 5 stars and a 98% participation rate, meaning that for every resident who's registered for a program and used the food cycler in a municipal program, 98% of them say that they will continue using the food cycler as their food waste solution moving forward. And then many municipalities as well who have completed their initial pilot programs have expanded these programs to target more households in their community. So Nelson, British Columbia, for example, they did 2 smaller pilot programs, and they're now in the process of putting a food cycler in every home in their city of about 5,000 households. Just to quickly speak on some federal funding that we have for these programs. Last summer, Food Cycle Science was selected as a finalist in Impact Canada's Food Waste Reduction Challenge. This is a 3-part challenge from Agri-Food and Agriculture Canada and Impact Canada as well to reduce Canada's food waste. So basically, as a finalist, we were awarded a $400,000 prize and tasked with finding more Canadian municipalities as implementation partners. So we've been using this funding over the past year to add on more municipal programs, increase the size of municipal programs, and really just have a subsidy in there that allows residents to find this solution as something that's very accessible and affordable for them. And then we have already submitted our final application as well for the final round, stage 3. And this comes with one of 2 grand prizes of $1.5 million, which would go right back into these programs as well. Any future funding that's received will continue to be invested into the municipal programs, and any municipalities that partner with us, they'll have the right of first refusal on any subsequent funding that we do receive. A couple more slides here before I wrap up, but just to quickly go through the pilot timeline. It's a 12-week program. So once there is an approval from council, residents will register and they'll purchase a food cycler at the subsidized rate from their municipality. They'll use the unit for 12 weeks and track the number of cycles per week. And then at the end of that 12 weeks, residents get to keep their food cycler, and we ask them to complete that survey that I had mentioned there. And with that survey data, we can evaluate the program's success. So we basically put all that info into a report, and we present that back to you and back to your committees and staff members. And that data can be used to determine how much diversion you got out of this program. It can even be translated over to how much savings you're getting from the reduced tonnage. And then it can go towards decision-making towards future waste management or any future program expansions. And we offer kind of that report writing and any grant applications as well as part of what we do on our side for you. Just to look at the subsidy model of the programs here. So we have the retail price there up top of these units. If you look on Amazon or Vitamix, they are quite expensive at the retail level, but what's great about these programs is we put in a municipal discount and then we add in that Impact Canada federal investment, and that brings the price of the units down by 50%. Then we ask for a municipal subsidy of $100 per household, regardless of which machine the resident chooses. And then the resident pays that remaining amount there, the 150 for the small unit or the 300 for the larger one. And then regardless of what that split is, that municipal subsidy stays the same. It's the same steady cost to the municipality. And just some pilot recommendations based on our experience. So for a municipality of your size, we'd recommend the 100 household program. Basically with that 100 households, the municipal investment would be $10,000 plus HST and shipping. We do have our warehouse here in Ontario up in Prescott, so it wouldn't be anything unreasonable in terms of the shipping. And these are all details that we work with staff members to make sure that all the costs and all the benefits are laid out right in front of you. And these are just based on our experience. We understand that the budgeting period is coming up for 2024, so we are happy to kind of tailor this program and adapt it based on your needs, your budget, and your resident demand. But we have had quite a bit of success in your area with these programs, especially along Bruce County, Georgian Bluffs, even in the Essex County and Windsor area as well. So we're really seeing a lot of success in kind of your part of Ontario there. So last slide before I wrap up, just some partnership benefits. I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but as an overall, you have an opportunity to bring your residents a solution to food waste using innovative technology at a cost that's well below the market price. Get to extend the life of your landfill, support Canadian innovation and clean technology, and be an environmental steward for your residents and really lead the way as a leader in sustainability in Ontario. So with all that being said, I just want to thank you very much for your time. We'd like to welcome the town of Hanover as a partner in the Food Waste Challenge. We think that your community would be a great fit for the benefits of the program. And today I just ask that you kindly receive this presentation as information. If there is any interest in partnering with us in a funded pilot program, I just ask that you refer us to a staff member and we'll work with them to bring a report and a recommendation back to council. So again, thank you for your time. I apologize if I went a little long there, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Jacob. Good presentation, and I'll open it up to council for any questions. Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Jacob, for your presentation. Certainly, it was great to meet you at the AMO conference a couple of weeks ago. I think it's a really exciting initiative for the town of Hanover, and I've heard about a lot of other local municipalities that have conducted similar pilot projects in the past year or so. I think from many conversations with local residents, Hanover residents are conscious about their environmental impact and are looking for a way to reduce their impact on the environment. And certainly I think there's a desire for Hanover to explore the green bin concept. So I think that the program that you're proposing is perhaps maybe an intermediary step or potentially something more long-term as the landfill committee continues to explore opportunities for organic waste diversion. A few of us had an opportunity to talk with a local deputy mayor at the AMO conference who is interesting to hear her perspective on some of the challenges that come with green bin service that I hadn't necessarily thought of before, but she was talking about some of the issues that they experience in the green bins, particularly around contamination. And they're having residents that, for example, put garbage into their green bins in order to avoid the bag tag cost. And that's something that I hadn't necessarily thought about with green bins. And so what's really nice about the food cycler is that the onus really remains on the resident to ensure that what goes in the machine is going to work properly. So I'm just wondering, Jacob, if you could tell us a little bit more about the life cycle of the machine, because certainly this is a concern that the machine has electronic components and it creates electronic waste. So could you tell us a little bit more about the life expectancy of the machine and clarify what the end of life plan is for these?
Yes, thank you very much, Councillor. And I'll start with the warranty period, because I'm sure that's a question that will come up, as it usually does. Each machine does come with a 1-year warranty in our municipal programs, and we take care of all of that. If residents have any issues with their machines or need troubleshooting, our customer care team works directly with them, and that onus does not fall on the municipality. In terms of the life expectancy, so the small machine that has a life expectancy of 5 to 7 years, and the large machine there that has a 7 to 10 year life expectancy. So if we just meet them in the middle and say 7 years, with our larger programs such as Nelson's, where they're going completely citywide with food cyclers, part of the cost of the program is us replacing those units as they reach their end of life. So on larger programs, that's something where we really work with you to ensure that it's not a partnership that's ending at the end of life of the machines, but that we are replacing them. And as we are innovating and always trying to improve the tech, as that end of life period comes around, we would hope that at that point, the machines will be even more functionally effective at doing the job. But in terms of the e-waste and the end of life, this is a conversation that we had as well in the joint meeting with Brockton there. And it's definitely a concern. These are electrical machines and they have components that we don't want to end up in the landfill. So one of the aspects of our programs as well, because it is a partnership, it's a full, we're here every step of the way. We work with the municipalities to, one, find a local e-waste recycler and ensure that the machines can be recycled there. And if there isn't, such as some of our partners in rural places across Canada, we set up a program with the residents so that we take back their machines, and then we're the ones who are responsible for it. As a clean technology company, we don't want to have a carbon footprint or a footprint that is bigger than it needs to be. And we actually have also done studies to see, when you compare the food cycler over its 7-year lifespan and the amount of diversion it does, and you look at that end number and you compare it to whether it goes into the landfill or it is properly e-recycled, the amount of diversion and emissions that are reduced and avoided from using the food cycle for that long are substantially greater than any emissions that would come from it ending up in the landfill. Not that we want it to end up there, but just that we to kind of emphasize that we have been doing studies to see the difference in what happens where it ends up at its end of life. So we obviously want to work to ensure that it ends up where it should, and that parts of the machines can be reused or recycled or refurbished. And this is something that is specific to the program of the municipality. I hope I didn't ramble on too long there. I hope I answered your question.
No, excellent. Thank you very much. And thank you for clarifying.
Other comments or questions? Councillor Fleet.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Jacob, for your presentation. It was nice meeting you at AMO. I was just wondering about the maintenance. Now, you're mentioning there's some type of filter that's got to be replaced, and how often, what would be the cost for that filter?
Yes, thank you for the question, Councillor. So in order to not have odors coming out of the machine, because food waste is quite smelly, we have carbon filters in our machine. So it's activated charcoal, and basically as the air cycles through the machine, those carbon filters ensure that you're not having any smells come out of the machine. They typically last between 3 and 4 months, depending on how much a resident uses the machine. They can be replaced for about $20 per filter change. And that's something where we can either work with the town to have some extra filters stocked at the municipal office, for example, but more commonly, our municipal partners just simply share an online link to our online store that's specific for residents in our programs. So basically, we ensure that the filter changes are at below market prices, and that residents, while they can go to, let's say, a pet store and get activated charcoal that would go into an aquarium, for example, we've done all of our research to make sure that our carbon is biodegradable, it's coming from sustainable sources, and we're making sure that it's at the best price possible for residents.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other? Okay, thank you. Counselor Hudson.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Jacob. Thank you for your presentation. Just a couple of questions regarding the basket that perhaps you can sit on the counter and then have the actual unit in your basement or your garage. Does it have a lid on it to have it sit there and not have the nasty come out into your kitchen?
Thank you for the question, Counselor. Yes, it does. I should have mentioned that. It does come with a separate lid that also has a small carbon filter inside. So even while that bucket is sitting there and it has the lid on, it won't attract any bugs or fruit flies or anything like that, and no smells will be coming out.
And pardon me, the other thing that I wanted to ask, so when you're finished with the filtering, the dry compost that you get, once you put it out into the garden, once it becomes wet again, is that then going to attract any critters into your yard?
Thank you for the question again. So it really should not. We've had our machines in steakhouses out in British Columbia, and the byproduct that they get from their food waste, they mix it in their gardens, and they've had no issues out there. There will, depending what you put in, there will sometimes be slight odors. If you put in a lot of lemon peels, let's say, you might have a slight lemony odor to your byproduct, but just like a fertilizer, you want to mix that byproduct into your soil. So you're not pouring it in a pile and having it sit there. You're really integrating it in to really spread the nutrients out. And in our experience and with our residents, there really is no attracting factor to the animals.
That's great. So I have one further question, just to clarify, basically. So you mentioned with the pilot programs, are we able to do both the small and the larger unit with the program? Is that what you were saying?
Yes, so we typically set out a registration for the residents. So if, let's say, a 100 household program was approved, we would work with your staff member to get the marketing material and promotion out to residents. And then we would have a registration set up where residents would sign up by putting in their name, address, postal code to make sure that they live within the town. And then they would choose which machine they want, so that when we actually place the order and deliver the units to you, we actually have that exact split of what residents are asking for.
Great, thank you. I'm excited about this, so thank you for all the information.
Thank you.
Okay, other comments or questions? So Jacob, I have one. So this may not be the right words for the process, but this machine actually dehydrates and grinds the material. So is there a noise level to the machine?
Thank you for the question, Your Worship. So the machine, it's very quiet. I would compare it to being no louder than a modern dishwasher. Most people run it overnight anyway, so noise wouldn't be a concern at that point, but it is very quiet even when there are bones going in. I wish I had a decibel level I could share, but the best comparison I can think of is it would be no louder than running a dishwasher.
Very good, thank you. Okay, so thank you again for the presentation, very informative and good for you and your and the Food Recycler Company for working to help with waste diversion from our landfills. So thank you very much, and we'll be in contact with you.
Thank you very much, Your Worship and councillors and staff, and have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you. Okay, I can ask now, Council, do you want staff to prepare a report to see if it's going to be a benefit to our residents, specifically because budget time is coming up and there will be some cost to this? And I'm seeing nodding heads and a hand. Councillor Hocking.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question has to be with the fact that we are in partnership with our landfill site. I guess we could go on our own. We don't need another municipality's support for that. It's just if we do such a thing, which I think is great, just means that our amount going to the landfill site would be decreased compared to another municipality that just carries on with the old way of doing things.
Correct. Deputy Mayor, did you want to speak to that, or do you want Ron to? Ron, can you elaborate a bit on that?
Yeah, I would think each municipality could look at it on their own. There has been presentations made on the Brockton side, and their representative coming to our Waste Management Committee have indicated that they do not. They've had presentations and they don't seem interested in it.
So we would only be subsidizing our residents. So yes, we may hopefully would have less going into the landfill. But Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Ron, is it 2025? I think there is some regulations coming in that we need to have a diversion program of some type. And is it 2025 when that happens?
Start of 2025 changes for our end of it in terms of the blue box thing. Then a year later, all municipalities, it changes in terms of funding of the blue box, but specifically a date related to organics. I don't believe that's been specified as of yet.
The reason I asked that was one of the presentations I sat through at AMO, they made mention of 2025. It was that circular economy, which they touched on the blue box program and the producer responsibility coming into effect for that. But they also were talking about starting in 2025, there was going to be some requirements for organics. So I just, that was the first I'd heard of it, and I didn't know if you had heard more on that or not. So that was my reason for that question.
I guess we'll wait and see when the information comes out. So, and you'll probably receive it first at the landfill then before council. So Councillor Fleet.
Thank you, Your Worship. What I found interesting was there's going to be an extra cost of $20 every 3 to 4 months for filters. So that's going to be about $80 extra per household for a resident to maintain this machine. And also, where does the old filter go?
I'm assuming the filter would go in the landfill. And that cost would be the residents' cost, and there's cost to everything, but if you're helping the environment and again, diverting from the landfill, I think it's worth it if you're not taking your compost out to the landfill. So. Councillor Cable?
Thank you, Your Worship. Maybe I should have asked Jacob, but do we know how other communities have scaled this? Like, so we're talking about 100 units. So that's a fairly small percentage of our households. So do we know if other like municipalities, are they like doing this on like an annual basis going forward? Like, is the idea that you would eventually be scaling to, you know, a quarter of your households having this? Or like, are we really seeing this as kind of a, we're going to pilot this, see how it goes, but ultimately come up with a more long-term solution?
I think if a staff report comes back, that information would be included, correct, Sherry?
Yeah, that's certainly something that through our information building that we could inquire with some of these municipalities that have proceeded with this initiative to confirm those details and bring that back for consideration.
So no decision now, just a decision whether we ask staff to go ahead and prepare a report and bring it back when they have the information. Councillor Hawking, then Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, Deputy Mayor was first. Okay, thank you. I would like to see a report brought back to us from staff, just outline the benefits. I know Councillor Fleet mentioned the cost of the charcoal filter, but I'm sure that there are quite a number of interested people to divert organics that they would be willing to assume that cost. There's quite an interest out there. And maybe it's a stopgap for something that's happening in 2025. So I know Sherry's looking for work, so if she could bring a report or her staff bring a report, that would be great. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. And in the same vein of train of thought that Councillor Hawking has, you know, we looked at the green bins and the cost to implement that. This is a step in that direction, when I agree, there is a fair bit of interest out there. It's not something that's going to be imposed on people that don't want to do it. And for those that do want to, I think it's a good option. And I as well feel that it's something that we should have more information on, and something we can consider come budget time. And like I said, there is certainly good support for it out there. And it's not like we'd be imposing that fee on people who didn't want to pay it at this point in time. I think it would be something that would be well received by our residents.
Very good. So Sherry, it's up to you when you'll get a report back to us before budget time. So which is soon, but okay, very good. Item 7 is business arising from the minutes. We do not have any. Item 8 is the staff reports. We have 8.1, which is PW 1623. The subject is 101 7th Avenue Storm Drain Extension. It's from Mr. Cooper, our Director of Public Works. And I need a mover and seconder to put this on the floor, Councillor Cable and Councillor Sackle. Ron, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Worship. The background regarding this report for the 101 7th Avenue drain extension is that planning for this storm outlet. It's actually for the site for the proposed long-term care facility has been ongoing since 2018. The site that's being developed comprises of 4.5 acres previously owned by the Hanover District Hospital and 1 acre by the town of Hanover. The current grassland site drains to the south with no defined storm outlet. With the development of the site, stormwater management controls are being implemented to control post-development site discharge to pre-development levels. That's all part of the stormwater management calculations. The stormwater management for the site proposes a stormwater pond on the northwest corner of the site adjacent to 7th Avenue with a pre-development controlled pipe outlet exiting to a storm sewer. Then that storm sewer is where this work comes in, to a storm sewer to be constructed and maintained on an easement on the west side of 261 2nd Street. Then it crosses 7th Avenue and comes down. It would be on the west side of the Raceway Barns, and it comes to an existing storm outlet that exists at 7th Avenue near 3rd Street. And there is a key plan shown on as part of the package here, which shows the area that I've just described. Crosses 7th Avenue, comes along west of the Raceway Barns, and it outlets existing storm. That's at 7th Avenue near 3rd Street, kind of across from Holman Motors Garage. With this, with the intentions of work commencing this fall on the site development for the long-term care facility, that's why we proceeded with tendering for this project, so we can have the storm sewer outlet in place prior to development of that site. There is timing with that work. It needs to happen on the on where the Raceway Barns are there. That timing is either it starts in October after the race season is over, or it has to be completed before early mid-May, before the Raceway season starts for another year. And with indications that work could commence this fall. That's why we proceeded at this time. So the tender was advertised in the Post along with follow-up communication to prospective contractors by Cobite Engineering. As of the tender closing deadline of 2 p.m. Thursday, August 3rd, we had 3 submissions received, one being from Omega Contractors out of London. The other one was from JT Excavating of Durham, and the other one was from Curtis Smith Excavating of Brussels. The tender was reviewed by Cobite Engineering Inc. for completeness and accuracy. And they have provided a letter recommending acceptance of the tender from Omega Contractors Inc. This is the same firm that just recently has completed the 11th Street reconstruction project earlier this year. Their quality of work and ability to deal cooperative with the residents has been favorable. As I previously indicated on the timing, work is not to commence adjacent to the Raceway Barns until October 3rd. The tender has a 35-day working allowance. That timing getting started on in the fall. What we'll see happening is storm sewer work would get completed throughout the fall, leading up to Christmas time, somewhere in that time frame. And any restoration work, paving within the Raceway property would be completed in the spring of 2024. Notice will be provided to residents adjacent to the storm outlet and to the Hanover Raceway once scheduling has been confirmed with the contractor, which they have indicated a mid-October as their anticipated project start line. The financial implications are that through pending site plan control agreement with 2001891 Ontario Inc. has agreed to reimburse the town costs to construct the storm outlet up to a maximum of $291,815. That was based upon an estimate that was provided in April of this year by Cobite Engineering. And what they required was an upset limit. They needed to control their costs of doing work on their overall site. When we went through the tender process, the lowest tender received from Omega Contractor Inc. is approximately $63,000 over the maximum reimbursement. However, the construction of the storm outlet does provide benefits to the town with better stormwater control from the site being developed and even controlling drainage that exists there before, because there was no defined storm outlet. It also provides for future connection for drainage along the south side of the Raceway Barns. That's been, provided for in the design, allows for something that Raceway Barns could do on their own in the future. The additional cost of the approximately $63,000 to be covered by the town can be offset by some of the $250,000 we had a savings in the previous project, and that was the 11th Street that came in under budget earlier this year, and that's in the road and stormwork component of that project. In terms of the link to strategic plan, it covers all four areas: economic development, community, environment, and sustainable municipal operations. And the recommendation is that report PW 1623, the 101 7th Ave storm drain extension be received, that the project be awarded to Omega Contractors Inc. for a total cost of $354,905.14 plus HST, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to enter an agreement with Omega Contractors Inc. for the 101 7th Avenue storm drain extension. If council would have any questions about the report, I would be pleased to answer. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Councillor Hudson.
Thank you, Ron, for making that clear in my head. I only have one question actually on page 32. 1.08, to connect proposed to storm sewer to existing storm structure. So the engineer's estimate came in at $2,500, and the JT and Curtis Smith excavating also were fairly low, but the Omega contractors were about 3 times that. So I'm just a little bit curious about that number. I mean, at $9,139. as opposed to the other two are 2,000 and the estimate of the engineer was 2,500.
I would just say in all the tenders, when I looked at them, there is some variance in the individual tender items. Some of them may have looked at the existing storm sewer. That number is a little bit higher, but they may have put more of kind of their overall site restoration work in which they're going to do into that particular component. But there is some items that variance between the individual tender items. But bottom line, Omega Contractors coming in and they're close to 50,000 below the next lowest bidder.
Anything further, Councillor Hudson? No. Other comments? Councillor Hocking, then Councillor Fleet, then the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. Thanks for the report, Ron. My question sort of focuses on the first sentence under background, where it says this has been ongoing for 2018, so it's 5 years. The discussion's been going on. We wouldn't be doing this whole project if there wasn't a long-term care facility there, would we?
That's the main requirement for it, because that site's being, when it gets developed, it's getting more intensification on that site. They're putting their stormwater management on it, but we have to provide an outlet from that site.
My question, I guess, goes, we're going to be spending this money, yet we don't have a definitive proposal from, it's been Revera. Is there any way that we would do this work and they could say, here's your 250,000, thank you, but we're not going to go ahead with our proposal?
Ron, Andrew would like to comment on that. Andrew?
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Hocking, I would say that in the agreement, the pending agreement we have with Revera, there is verbiage in there that we only do this work once they confirm that the project is a go. They've been pretty adamant that we time this the way we have, giving us indications that that will be the case. Without me coming out so much as to saying for sure it's a start, but all indications and everything is in place for potentially this to begin this fall. The project, I mean, not just the storm work.
Great. Thank you, Andrew.
Okay, Councillor Fleet?
Thank you, Your Worship. Ron, are we expecting any traffic delays like during construction on 7th? It's so busy around that bend there.
Thank you through Your Worship. No, because actually the part where across the 7th Avenue, that's actually going to be bored across there. So it's not open cut. It's bored where it crosses the county road. And all of that was, the communication that we've had through the county and the requirements for this project to make it what we're proposing during the construction to make it safe. So board across, no disruption to traffic.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. And I don't know who can best answer this question, but when I look at the financial implications and I see $63,000 that we're over from what the estimate was, and then in something I read there, it said that the final estimate from Colbide said we're within 6,000. I'm just wondering how the negotiations went, that we didn't use the final estimate to negotiate this with them. And like I said, I don't know what's gone on in the background, not sitting in on those negotiations. Maybe there's a good reason for it, but just like to better understand that if I could.
Ron, can you answer that? Or Sherry?
The estimate that we got for the 294,000, and that number that actually came from Colbide, and that was in April of this year, and that was an updated estimate we got when we were working through the negotiations with with who's developing the site. So that's what we got. And then as time came further on, now they've provided another estimate, 6 months later, and construction costs of materials and some stuff has increased in price, but both provided with Cobide. When we were negotiating with them to get the updated price, the 294 was the number that we got directly from the engineers.
Thanks, Ron. Andrew, you have a comment?
Thank you, Your Worship. No, I guess just to reiterate what Juan said, yeah, we did get the estimate April or May. That was the figure we were negotiating with Rivera. The consultant that provided us that estimate felt pretty confident that it was accurate. And obviously, when it goes out for tender, there's there's some question marks, and there's no guarantees, based on availability and timing. And unfortunately, the number came in a little bit higher than certainly we had hoped. We would have loved to see in that 253,000, but that's just wasn't the case.
Further, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, and I understand that with the bids do come in after the fact, and you do your best, but I'm looking at there's no way you want to discourage this kind of development, so I know we need to work with them. But I guess I just question if Rivera was going out and getting their bids for part of the structure now, and their bids come in higher, they would have to adjust. So I'm just curious as to why we don't get to adjust.
So I will just support and add to what Ron and Andrew have said. And our conversations with Rivera have been ongoing since April, when we had hoped we would have further information to come to council in regards to the site plan agreement. That didn't transpire quite how we thought it would. And again, you talk about working with them. That's exactly what's been going on behind the scenes. And we did have agreement from them around the 291,000 approximately. That has moved forward, and you will see at our next council meeting is the intent that will bring the site plan control agreement forward, that you will see that. Again, that's through that delegation of authority that we as staff have that ability to do that, and we're bringing that to you for information. So there's been a number of conversations between staff and Rivera since April to try and get them to that 291. And then, as has been indicated, the tenders came in higher than what we had hoped.
And that I understand that. And that's why I wanted to clarify that, because we are not privy to those conversations that go on behind the scenes. And sometimes there's valid reasons for us, spending $63,000 we weren't planning on. But I think it's worth talking about, and we need to understand that, because that is a significant number on that we're taking liability for. And Rivera is a private company, so it just I think we need to better understand some of that background when we're having these discussions, because I think it's important to our residents. It's important to me as a counselor sitting on council here to understand why we would end up in that position.
Andrew, you have a comment?
Your Worship, I'm not going to be able to give a total historical perspective here, because it was in 2018, and quite frankly, I wasn't here in 2018. That's how long this has been going on. Originally, this storm outlet, if some might recall, was going to go through the Hanover Hospital property. Originally, we looked through that route. There was going to be certainly some maintenance concerns that was going to impact the helipad. Ultimately, it just didn't make sense, and we weren't able to come to an agreement on that route. Once that happened, it ultimately ended up getting rerouted to work through the easement that we've talked about to ultimately the route where it currently is. yeah, to follow up with Sherry, this file's been a living organism. It's lots of conversations, lots of back and forth, trying to find out, where Rivera was comfortable, where the town hopefully was comfortable, and kind of what worked for everybody, as well as understanding kind of the timeline and the implications at stake for a 2025 potential completion for their requirements as well, and in terms of funding. So not that maybe gives a whole lot more information, but maybe a little bit more background of how this has kind of transpired over that time.
Thanks, Andrew. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
And thank you, Andrew. And like I said, I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot here. It's just, I think it's important that we understand how we get to this point. And, perhaps it's something similar to a CIP, whereas, we do have a lot of benefit going forward by making sure this project does proceed. We'll have good tax revenue from this establishment once it's up and running. So, there's a lot of things to consider. So again, it's my reason for the questioning is to better understand. I think it's important that we have Rivera in our community. I think they bring a valuable service. And I think that, it's definitely going to be an asset, increase to our asset assessment base. Sorry, that's the word. And, we will certainly recover those costs as we move forward. But again, it's just, I thank you for the information, and hopefully it wasn't too difficult with anybody.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? It's good to see this project moving forward. 2018 is a long time. I've been saying Rivera is going to start this year, and hopefully it is this year. So, all right, I will call the question. All in favor of report PW 1623? That's carried. Thank you. Item 8.2 is report DCS 1423. The subject is our 2024 budget plan. It's from Chris Walker, our Director of Corporate Services and Treasurer. And I need a mover and seconder to put this on the floor. Councillor Fleet and Councillor Hudson. Chris?
Thank you, Your Worship. This is more, every year we present a budget plan for council's approval, and the purpose of the plan is to guide the budget process, as well as to communicate to council key dates so that the budget deliberations and anticipated projects are completed in a timely manner. Both the November 27th and December 11th special meetings that are noted in our chart have been on your meeting schedule provided at council orientation back last year. So we're looking on November 20th to come to council with our proposed 2024 fees and charges recommendations, which will be part of our 2024 budget. November 27th, once a year, council has been provided with an annual council planning session, which is basically a year in review. And we're also looking at possibly bringing forward to you a 5-year and a 10-year capital project so that you can see them more in detail instead of waiting until the actual budget date. So you have an idea what's actually in our asset management plan and the projects that are on the table for the next 5 to 10 years and within our strat plan requirements. And then we're planning to have a special budget meeting on December 11th to consider the draft consolidated 2024 budget, which will be a review of each department by each department head. December 18th is our normal council meeting, and should we need further review and clarification for the budget, then we will bring it forward at that time, or we can pass the budget either on the 11th, the 18th, as well as January 15th if we need further review and clarification. Again, these are going to be tough years because it's a pretty expensive year with all the strat plan requirements and all the asset management planning and all the legislation changes. There's a lot of money going to be brought forward. So we could have 3 meetings where we constantly go back and forth with parameters and stuff. So we've given you a few dates there as well. So again, there's no financial implications yet. It's the actual budget meeting that will be the major financial implications. And right now, the link to the strategic plan is the sustainable municipal operations. So the recommendation is that this report DCS 14-23, which is the 2024 budget plan, be received, and that the proposed 2024 budget process timelines be approved as presented. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. Any issues with the dates? And then we're into 2024. Just like that. All right, all in favor of DCS 1423? That's carried. Thank you. Item 8.3 is report CAO 1123. The subject is the Hanover Police Service Station Review Ad Hoc Committee Terms of Reference. It's from Sherry Walden, our CAO, and I need a mover and seconder to put this on the floor. Councillor Hocking and Councillor Fleet. Sherry?
Thank you, Your Worship. And this is in the action in response to the notice of motion that was approved at our last meeting, which is outlined in the background section of this report. So I'm not going to go over that verbatim. It is detailed again in the background section of this report for anybody who is also listening online. If you recall just a bit of history, in 2020, there was an Emergency Services Facilities Review Committee that was formed by council, and that was to conduct a preliminary review of our 3 emergency services related facilities in Hanover, the Hanover Police Station, the Hanover Fire Hall, and the Grey County EMS building located at 147th Avenue. And then at the May 3rd, 2021 meeting, council received that report, and included in that were recommendations with respect to the Hanover Police Service Station. And that recommendation was that HPS continue to use their current station, but that improvements be made to the building to address existing deficiencies. An addition be built on the north end of the building. An addition be built on the south end of the building to accommodate a proper sally port, and that when adjacent property becomes available, the town consider expanding the size of the property to accommodate additional outdoor parking space. Since the adoption of that report, there have been further maintenance and repair related issues with Hanover Police Station, as well as the lack of essential secure storage areas that have previously been noted in the prior report that prompted council to approve the motion that was brought forward to you. The terms of reference that is attached to this report indicates establishing a committee that would review the current station and provide options for it. That review will assess the police service requirements for the current population and its anticipated growth over the next 25 years. It's intended that this review will make optimum solutions and make clear recommendations with regard to the long-term facility requirements. And that it be the recommendation be designed to encompass the town as a whole and align with the strategic priorities of the town and Hanover Police Service. So the proposed review would consider the current state and needs of the HPS facility, including a review and update of the items noted in the body of the report. That does include a review of the existing emergency services report that was and the recommendations that were established. There's a lot of good information in that report, and we really do not need to start from zero with this. It would be taking that information and assessing what's changed since that time and what are the existing opportunities and options available. And then exploring those options associated with developing a new Hanover Police Service facility in Hanover. And that would include all of the items that are detailed there, what that footprint looks like, strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, and threats, analysis of potential sites, a preliminary location analysis, as well as provided implications associated with any facilities that are left vacant. The terms of reference indicates that this committee will involve or would include 5 individuals as follows: myself as the CAO, the Hanover Police Chief, and Director of Building and Planning and CBO, so as staff members. And then we would have 1 council representative and 1 public member representative. Again, that public member representative would be advertised publicly, and those members of the public who are interested could submit their application, and at the mayor's recommendation, they would be appointed to the committee. So the deliverables as outlined in the terms of reference include providing a draft report to council for comment, a final report by January 15th, and then that would include all background materials, et cetera, that have been used to develop the recommendations within the report. There are no financial implications of this report at this point in time, but it is anticipated that the work of this ad hoc committee may require the input of a professional consultant, such as a structural engineer, and that would come with costs associated to that piece of the assessment work. The report before you is that report CAO-11-23 Hanover Police Service Station Review Ad Hoc Committee Terms of Reference be received, and that the Hanover Police Service Station Review Ad Hoc Committee Terms of Reference be approved. I'd be happy to answer any questions or provide clarification accordingly.
Thanks, Sherry. Any comments or questions? Counselor Hawking?
Thank you, Your Worship. Excellent review, Sherry. I just have one suggestion, if council would agree with it, that we increase the committee size to 6 and add a member of the Hanover Police Board to the committee.
Okay, thank you. The council representative could be already a police board member, but I'll just let council make suggestions here. Any comments or suggestions? Counselor Cable?
Thank you, Your Worship. No, I appreciate the comment, Councillor Hawking, and I think that it would make sense for a specific spot to be allocated for the Hanover Police Service Board. I think that was similar to the committee makeup when we looked at the fire hall previously.
Okay, other comments or questions? Counselor Hawk, what's your thoughts on a police board member being the council rep as in yourself?
Thank you for the vote of confidence. I don't dispute that I could cover both responsibilities. So yes, I am a police board member, so it would be a dual purpose. Do I get 2 votes then?
No, but okay, I'll put it out there. Is there anyone else from council that would like to be the representative? I'm not seeing any, Dave, so I think that would leave the committee at 5. If you're acceptable with that. Okay, Sherry, any other comments with that?
No, that's certainly a solution. The other solution to that would be the public member could potentially also be the public member of the appointed police services board as an option. So, but I didn't see too many hands being put up for other council members who are interested in being part of that committee. So that certainly is a solution.
I think it's suitable for Councillor Hawking to represent both as a council member and the board. Councillor Cable?
Thank you, Your Worship. Has this been discussed at the police service board? Like, is there any interest from members of the board that are interested in getting onto this committee?
Councillor Hawking, I was not able to attend the last meeting, so maybe you're aware.
Good question, Councillor Cable. Yes, there is. And that person who is interested served on the Emergency Services Committee with me. So he did express interest.
So in saying that, I wouldn't recommend that you have the dual role then, because that, to me, that's almost, I don't want to say biased, but there's too much information from the police board itself, having a board member and a councillor member and a public member.
That's exactly it. It would be slanted to have too much of a view from a police board perspective. So if you want to make it a police board member, then I should not be the council rep.
Correct. So in saying that, is there a council member that would want to be the representative? So we're back to where we started. Councillor Hawking, if you're acceptable with that.
Yes, and we could take that to the police board, next police board meeting, that was the wishes of council.
Right.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
Yep. I'm on board.
Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm wondering if we can make a small amendment on page 3 of the terms of reference. Under the methodology section for number 1, when they're looking at the current police station, it does have in here, I think it's bullet point 4, talking about the work that's anticipated to be required within the next 5 years. And I'm wondering if we could have work required within the next 5 years as well as the next 10 years, just so we get a bit of a longer view on this, right? Because perhaps there's a new roof that needs to be done 7 years from now, and that's not going to be included in the 5-year report. So if there's a way that we could get a slightly longer time horizon, that might be good.
Okay, Sherry, no issues with that?
Yeah, certainly some of those capital things, such as a new roof, would be fairly simple to include in that type of review. Sometimes, though, there are those maintenance or repairs that you just don't plan for, so they wouldn't be able to be included accordingly, but.
We can change it. Any other comments or questions? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor of report CAO 1123. That's carried. Moving on, item 9, correspondence requiring action. We do not have any. Item 10 is reports and correspondence for information. The first one is the downtown improvement area minutes. Councillor Fleet.
Thank you, Worship. The Hanover DIA met June 15th. It seems so long ago. I'll just go over some of the highlights. The SIP 2123 downtown revitalization DIA portion, 2,000 per business. Joanne Switzer, JD Lyons, Brutons, for a total of 3,248.84. Small business security enhancement grant report. Krista updated on current applications and noted we will continue to share promo details. Market committee, Linda noted that 2 markets are booked. So I'm sure everybody has those on their calendars. September, the fall market promo sidewalk sale during the event, and send photo of your front of your store will be shared. October trick and treat trail, and November and December we're in the Hanover holiday shape shop and win. So that's all I have to report from the DIA.
Thank you. And of course, if there's any questions for these information reports, just raise your hand. Item 10.2 is the Hanover Police Services Board meeting minutes from August 21st. I was at the AMO conference, but I'll still highlight the minutes. And if there's questions, I'll ask Councillor Hawking. So I can say that a survey is being developed for the 2024 to 2026 business plan, and a small test group will be asked to complete the survey and provide their feedback. So we ensure that the questions are complete and affect the residents, and they can have their say, to put it simply. Letters have been sent out to the school boards to see if there is interest in a program which is similar to the DARE program, which involves education about drug and alcohol resistance. And the board feels this would be very beneficial to students. So we're awaiting the results from the boards to see if they will allow the officers to go into the schools. The chief's contract is under negotiation, and the board will be undertaking the chief's performance review. And the Ministry of the Solicitor General, the Inspectorate of Policing, has given notice of an audit, and the deputy chief has been assigned this task to work with the auditors. And for community events, the chief's Twitter account now has 3,152 followers, which is very good. August 13th, the officers attended the Hanover Bentinck and Brant Agricultural Fair. And I don't know if you caught one of the chief's posts on Twitter when he said that the officers didn't have a very bad day, as in BAAD, because the officers had their photo taken with the sheep, which was quite appropriate. There was a joint police services ride program held in Hanover, so that's good to keep everyone safe. Story time with one of the constables in the Hanover Public Library, and officers participated in the Children's Safety Village, and said a lot of many youth were there attending this event, learning about safety, and the officers participated in the Tim Hortons Camp Day. And also the officers are still doing the positive ticketing, and that's where officers issue positive tickets to kids caught in the act of doing good things, as in wearing a bike helmet and following the rules of the road when they're on their bike. And the chief has said that a lot of kids come up to the officers and say, see, I have my helmet on, or I have my bell on the bike, whatever. So that's going very well. And open to questions if there are any. Councillor Hawking.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to emphasize the issue that on the chief's report dealing with Bruce County Housing Services. They are using residents in Hanover to place their clients. And it is our police department that has to interact with Bruce County residents living in, I'm going to say, a shelter in Hanover. Not only their increased workload, plus the impact that they have on the staff at the Hanover District Hospital because of their many issues. We, as I said, had a pretty good chat about this. And the chair is, we're just going to follow up to see if they can at all support us, because you hear the chief's report about additional workload and when another county sort of, I'm going to say the word, and it's not a very good word, so I'm not going to say it, places their clients in our jurisdiction and then leaves the responsibility to our police force. I just don't think it's fair. So we're going to attempt to get some sort of understanding on how that's impacted on our police services. And it's not reported in the minutes, but it's also on our hospital staff. So I just wanted to highlight that because it did get a good discussion. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thanks, Councillor Hawking. Okay, item 10.3 is the Saugeen Municipal Airport Commission minutes from August 16th. Councillor Hawking.
Thanks. So I'm just going to read from my notes, which is a summary of the report that you had in your council package. Just a little update on our fundraising. We've had 39,000 pledged to date, with 18,000 allocated for this year. We hosted a successful pilot information wings night. The wings seem to get the people out there, and then we have a chat on our attempt to improve communication among the pilot community. I don't think there's ever a time where you can say you've over communicated. There's always seems to be something that comes up. So it's a good night. We are currently expecting our final draft on the bylaw that Clerk Dickard has worked with us on September the 13th. We've invited all three clerks to a Zoom meeting for what I think is the final document. This has not gone the way I would expect, but it is what it is. So we'll deal with that down the road. What happened was we hired our previous commission hired a lawyer to look at the new legislation as mandated by the province on non-for-profit. So we spend not a whole bunch of money, but we spend some money. And then about halfway through, the lawyer says, oh, you don't qualify for non-for-profit. So all the work I've done doesn't apply. So hello. Anyway, we're working through that. This is very, very important to me. We had a very successful economic development session in June that was put together, organized by April. We not only had April, but also the other two EDC managers from West Grey and Brockton attend. And we also had EDC reps from Grey County and Bruce County. And I circulated the notes. Jack Seenstra, who is chair of our Friends of the SMA at the airport, has come up with a pamphlet, and some of the pilots are going to give her their time and fly to Buttonville and promote our airport by handing out the pamphlets and walking around. I think there's over 200 pilots and they're leaving Buttonville because it's closing down. We struck a subcommittee to review our carrying charges and fuel revenue. And what I mean by the carrying charges is we have a new fuel pedestal, which is the way the charges for fuel, and that was a capital expenditure on last year's budget. But when they use a Visa or MasterCard, the cost of using a Visa MasterCard comes off our top end, and so it just knits into our revenue, which I don't like to see, but what we're looking at ways to deal with that. Section 3.1, subsection B and subsection D, our code of conduct was amended to include a prohibition of abuse, discrimination, harassment, and bullying via social media. I think every institution has that. And as always, we continue to discuss our asset plan management with not too much in our capital budget, and that's our purpose of our fundraising campaign. Unfortunately, Hope Air fundraiser, and just for the public at large and maybe some counselors, Hope Air fundraiser is run every year by our airport, and the money that we collect from that, the pilots put that on, that pays for pilots to fly people from remote northern to hospitals. It's like Marathon, and last 2 years ago, they raised over $50,000. So it's something that our pilots steer to their heart, but unfortunately, due to change in staff, it never got pulled together properly. So we're going to do it in 2024. And it's not in the minutes, but I want to have shout out to the pilot community for hosting our kids fly in, which was on last Saturday. It was raining and they had to postpone it. And I thought, oh, it's going to be a poor turnout. And believe it or not, there were 123 students or kids and their parents show up for their flight. And on Saturday, we had Lisa Thompson, MPP from Bruce Huron, attend, did a walkabout through the airport, did a walkabout on the hangars, and left with a very favorable impression of the Sauget Municipal Airport. So I want to thank the pilots for hosting that, and I'm open to any questions, Your Worship.
Are there any questions for Councillor Hocking? I don't see any, but I do have to say, Councillor Hocking, when I was reading these minutes and it said Wings Night, I thought, oh geez, I missed the Wings Night.
Yeah.
So maybe you want to have a Wings and a Wings Night.
Yeah, right.
And you'll attract even more people. So, all right, 10.4 is the Committee of Adjustment meeting minutes. Councillor Hudson.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Committee of Adjustment met on Tuesday, August the 29th, and dealt with consent applications applying to the property of 101 10th Street, which everyone should know is the village. The purpose of the application is to sever a lot, effectively separating the existing long-term care facilities from the existing seniors assisted living and retirement building. The severed and retained lands will remain under the same ownership. If the owner decides to undertake future development of the designated parcels or proposes a new usage, any official plan amendment and zoning bylaws applications will be submitted and addressed accordingly. The second minor variance application also was for the Hanover Facility Incorporated and applying to the same lands, and the application is to vary the provisions of the zoning bylaw, seeking relief requiring a 7.5 meter rear yard setback, and minor variance application requesting relief from a 1 meter yard encroachment provision as well. Also, the third minor variance application is for 492 9th Street. And the purpose of that application is to expand a legal non-conforming use to allow the expansion of a mudroom and a landing by 6.2 feet. All of the applications were granted at that time.
Very good. Thank you. I don't see any questions. Item 10.5 is the Drinking Water Source Protection Committee minutes from July the 28th. And thanks to Vicky, we are receiving these minutes that are current and in draft form. You remember last month, I believe it was the March minutes we received. So that's good work. Thanks, Vicky. So just to state again, this committee works to ensure drinking water is clean, safe, and sustainable by protecting sources of municipal drinking water, such as lakes, rivers, and well water. The committee is reviewing requirements for 2 new wells that are being planned in Chesley and Minto Pines, which is in the Mount Forest area. And they did state that the Children's Water Festival was in person this year with 1,620 grade 4 students from 38 schools in Grey and Bruce counties attending. So that's pretty impressive to reach that many students and teach them about safe drinking water. So that's very good. I'm glad we're getting those minutes a little more timely. So item 10.6, this is correspondence from the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation advising us of the extension of the current assessment cycle. And the valuation date of that is January 1st, 2016 through to the end of the 2024 taxation year. So this means that property taxes for 2024 will continue to be based on that valuation date of 2016, and property assessments will remain the same as they were for the 2023 tax year unless there have been changes to the property. So I'm not sure when they will change that, but we'll see. Item 10.7 is correspondence from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing regarding the Building Faster Fund. As announced by the Premier, 10% of the overall funding will be set aside for small, rural, and northern communities. Item 10.8 is an invitation to attend an evening with Saugeen Hospice. It's on Wednesday, September 20th. In Mildmay at their community center. Social time is at 6:30 till 7:15 with guest speakers starting at 7:15. And they do ask if you could RSVP, but I'm sure if last minute you want to show up for information, you'd be welcome. Item 11 is planning and other meetings. On the agenda, all our meetings are listed here. And I do want to comment that 11.3, the Cultural Roundtable Subcommittee is actually, it's a special meeting tomorrow and it's at 6 p.m. rather than 10 a.m. And dates to remember and announcements. The next committee of the whole meeting is October 2nd at 4 p.m. and the next regular council meeting is September 18th at 4 p.m. And at this time, I'll ask if there's any notices of motion. Seeing none, we do have a closed meeting this afternoon. And it is recommended that the Council of the Town of Hanover meet in closed session in order to adjust a matter pertaining to a proposed or pending acquisition of land by the municipality. And I need a mover and seconder to go into closed. So I have Councillor Cable and Deputy Mayor Dickert. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Just wait a couple of minutes and Okay, so we are now back in open session and I declare that the Hanover Council went into closed session in order to address matters pertaining to a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality. That is the last item on our agenda besides adjournment, and I will take a mover and a seconder to adjourn at 5:52. Councillor Sacco and Councillor Hudson, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Good meeting.